Before we get started, drop a like to support our content and subscribe to the channel, because here you won't miss any important updates about the Golden State Warriors, behind-the-scenes news, rumors, and everything that can truly change the direction of the season. No one can pretend they expected this start. Golden State came into the season like that team many people look at and think, it's done. Their time has passed. Now it's just a memory. But the court doesn't forgive a pre-written narrative. The court responds with execution, with energy, with commitment. And what we saw right away was a Warriors team that refuses to accept the "past it" label. 4 wins and 1 loss isn't a trophy, but it's a very clear message. There's still fuel, there's still purpose, there's still a living identity behind that badge. What's most impressive isn't just the result. It's the way it's happening. It feels like a group that started recognizing itself again. Stephen Curry is still the heart that sets the rhythm, but now the environment feels sharper, more competitive, more aggressive. Draymond Green remains the voice that organizes the defense and drags the team forward when the game demands toughness. And Jimmy Butler arrives with that battle mindset that changes the mood of the whole team. Some players add points, and some players change the atmosphere. Butler is the second type. He makes the team believe any night can turn into a war, and that wars are won in the mind as well. But then comes the NBA's cruel detail. The start excites you, but the road collects its price. A long season isn't about sparkle. It's about survival. And when veterans are your pillars, the threat doesn't have to be a specific opponent. The threat lives in accumulated wear, in heavy legs, in the micro-injury that becomes a limitation, in the stretch of games where the energy simply doesn't come back at the same level. That's why, even with this thrilling start, things are already heating up behind the scenes. Not out of desperation, out of calculation. The front office knows there's a real window here, but it also knows a window isn't an open door to madness. It's a short space between 2 realities. On one side, the chance to contend at the highest level. On the other, the risk of compromising the future by forcing an "it's happening now" move out of panic. And that's exactly why names like Lauri Markkanen have started popping up, and even more ambitious speculation involving Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not because someone woke up and decided to dream, but because Golden State has ammunition, draft picks, contracts that can enter discussions, young players who interest any negotiating table. The problem isn't having tools. The problem is choosing the direction without breaking the soul of the team. Because the Warriors have something that doesn't show up in the box score: chemistry. And chemistry, when it clicks, becomes an advantage money can't buy. Tweaking a structure that's working can look like bravery, but it can also be vanity. And what's setting this debate on fire is a simple truth. Even while winning, the team is showing very specific weaknesses. And specific weaknesses are exactly the kind of thing good opponents hunt without mercy. The most glaring example is in the paint. Even with the arrival of Al Horford, Golden State is near the bottom when it comes to rebounding. And when you look at blocks, the story doesn't improve. On top of that, the team is among those that give up the most points near the basket. This isn't a small detail, it's a symptom. And symptoms become open wounds in the playoffs because the game gets more physical. Possessions get heavier, officiating tends to allow more contact, and a team that can't withstand punishment in the middle starts bleeding from the inside. Horford helps a lot with what veterans do best: positioning, communication, reading the game, making the right choice at the right moment. But there's a part of basketball that doesn't negotiate with experience: constant physical impact. Horford brings intelligence, but he no longer brings the same presence that intimidates the rim for 48 minutes. And that's where the question appears: uncomfortable, persistent, almost inevitable. Can you sustain this level of competitiveness without a true anchor in the paint? At this point, the name Joel Embiid enters like a bomb that, just by being mentioned, changes the tone of the debate. Because in pure basketball terms, the logic is tempting. When he's whole, he's one of the most dominant centers on the planet. He scores with skill, punishes through contact, draws double teams, and finds the pass. And defensively, he changes decisions just by existing near the rim. A healthy Embiid solves rebounding, solves rim protection, solves points in the paint, and still offers a pick-and-roll partnership any guard dreams about. With Curry, you can even imagine the kind of chaos it would create for opposing defenses. If you guard the shot, you open lanes. If you pack the paint, you give space. If you double the wrong way, you pay with the pass. On paper, it looks almost too perfect. But the real NBA isn't played on paper. The first obstacle is the most obvious and the most dangerous: availability. Embiid has been dealing with physical limitations and recurring issues, especially with his knee, and that completely changes the risk of the investment. It's one thing to bet on a player you know will be there when the season tightens. It's another to build your hope on an if. And teams that live on if usually end the year explaining what could have been. The second obstacle is financial. Embiid's contract is enormous, the kind that reorganizes an entire team around him. It's not just paying. It's what you can't do because you're paying. It's the kind of commitment that, if it works, becomes a path to a title. But if it doesn't, it becomes an anchor in the worst possible way. And for a trade of that size to happen, Golden State wouldn't be moving peripheral pieces. They'd be moving identity. Because in the conversations people imagine out there, names like Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga start appearing as part of the price. And here is the conflict that divides fans, analysts, and probably people inside the franchise itself. Draymond isn't just a player on the roster. Draymond is a language. He's the guy who makes the defense breathe together, who directs positioning in real time, who reads the play before the play is even born. Taking him out of the system isn't replacing production. It's changing the way you play. It's swapping a structure built over years for another that would need to be born from scratch. In the middle of a season, under pressure, with expectations, with daily adjustments. Kuminga represents another dilemma: the future. He's the bridge between the current era and the next. He's the kind of athlete who hasn't become everything he can become yet, but who carries the potential to be a central piece after the veterans. Letting him go is saying clearly that the franchise chose to live harder in the present, even if it shortens the horizon. And there is no clean decision here. Any path has a cost. That's why when someone says, "Imagine Curry, Butler, Green, and Embiid together," it's impossible not to feel the punch of that image. It would be a team with enough mental power and talent to become a favorite immediately. But the question that truly matters is the one almost no one wants to face head-on. For how long? And under what conditions? Because a quartet like that only truly scares people if it's healthy, in sync, willing to adapt, and with minutes managed well. And basketball, especially at this level, loves to punish certainty. There's also a factor people don't say out loud often, but it weighs inside a locker room: the risk of breaking built trust. This Warriors group, as it is right now, seems to play with the joy of being together. It looks like it has rediscovered a competitive happiness, that feeling of we understand each other. When a team finds that, making a radical move can become a dangerous message. I don't trust what you're doing. And sometimes that message collapses more than any statistic. On the other hand, ignoring the holes in the paint is also a kind of illusion. Because the team can survive very well in the regular season with tactical intelligence, collective effort, and an offense that punishes any distracted defense. But when the game slows down, gets more physical, and becomes more specific, those deficiencies scream, and the front office knows it. That's why, even with the good run, there's this silent vigilance. Reports, metrics, physical load monitoring, minute control, and a question that comes back every day at the back of the room. When the marathon collects its payment, can we hold up the same way? On that balance, patience looks like the more mature option, because this start doesn't look like a team crying for help. It looks like a team asking for continuity. The offense is flowing. Curry is commanding as always. Butler added toughness and decisiveness, and the collective defense has shown moments of organization that make a difference. The Warriors right now don't look lost. They look like a team that knows exactly what it wants to do, but still needs to prove it can do that against every type of opponent, including the ones that hurt through contact and live off dominating the painted area. That's where the smartest part of the conversation comes in. A reinforcement doesn't have to mean an earthquake. There's a difference between chasing a star who changes everything and finding a piece that fixes a specific problem without destroying what's working. And on that note, a second report starts gaining traction and stirring a different kind of expectation. The talk that Golden State could be having discreet conversations to bring in Kai Sotto, the 18-man Filipino center, to join the roster in a future season. And that's interesting for several reasons at once. First, because Kai Sotto speaks directly to the team's need: size, length, rim presence, potential shot blocking, and rebounding. Second, because his profile isn't that of a stiff center glued to the low post like basketball is still the same as decades ago. He's been described as a more modern player with mobility, feel, a mid-range jumper, and the ability to take part in the offensive flow without stalling the system. Third, because there's an off-court impact that, in the NBA, is also part of the game: global connection, market, community, cultural identity. The Bay Area has one of the largest Filipino communities outside the Philippines. That means it wouldn't be just another player, it would be a symbol. And smart franchises understand symbols. Golden State has always been a team that thinks beyond the scoreboard, that works on brand, engagement, international presence. Bringing in an athlete with massive appeal in a basketball-crazy country is building a gigantic bridge to an audience that celebrates, consumes, follows, and turns players into phenomena. And when sport meets representation, the impact is often immediate. But you can't treat it as marketing alone, because then it becomes unfair to the player. Kai Sotto has a courageous path, leaving comfort early, placing himself in competitive environments, seeking improvement far from home, facing the physical shock, learning from different styles. Experience in strong leagues, against big and tough athletes, helps someone mature. And that kind of baggage often matters a lot when trying to make the jump to the most demanding level in the world. The question, of course, is how he would fit into a system built on movement, reading, and speed. And that's where it gets really good. Because if Golden State sees him as a rotation piece, he can offer rim protection minutes without needing the ball all the time. He can contest drives, give presence on the defensive glass, and help start transition with a simple, safe outlet pass. And offensively, if he has consistency from mid-range and understands screens and angles well, he can contribute without stopping the game. The Warriors don't need a center who runs the offense all the time. They need someone who sustains what the defense today isn't sustaining. And there's a detail that ties everything together: the difference in risk. A trade for Embiid would be all in, with a high cost, changing the structure and demanding perfect health. A bet on Kai Sotto, depending on the format, can be a more controlled addition, with growth potential, without tearing down the core and without compromising the salary ceiling in the same way. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed. No move is. But the type of gamble changes, and sometimes the type of gamble is what separates a smart team from an impulsive one. That's why this Warrior season is so fascinating, because it isn't just about winning games. It's about proving experience can still dictate rhythm in a league that gets more physical every year. It's about watching a veteran group reinvent itself without losing its essence. And it's about a front office that has to decide, with the cold clarity of someone who knows the price of decisions, whether it's worth hitting the chaos button for a superstar-level impact, or whether it's worth continuing to refine the collective and make more surgical moves, thinking about fit, health, and continuity. And before you go, I want to hear from you. With the way this team started, do you believe they can contend at the top with the current roster, or do you think they really do need a stronger presence in the paint to handle the more physical games when the pressure rises? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I read everything and I want to understand what the fan base sees. If this video helped you understand the behind the scenes and the paths Golden State might take, hit the like button now. It supports the channel massively and helps this content reach more people who love the NBA. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates, hot rumors, and full analysis of what could change the direction of the season. Here, we follow everything closely.